Hey, what's up guys? This is Church of Caboose, and for today's Destiny 2 video, we're going to be talking about what I believe is the biggest issue with Destiny 2, especially in the current state of the game. Before we get further into the video, I want you guys to know I love Destiny, but just because you love something, that does not mean you cannot be critical of what you love. I want the game to get better, I want more people to love it, and I'm definitely not trying to get more views by being all clickbaity, being like, oh look, another person hates Destiny 2. No, I really enjoy the game, I just want it to be better, hence why I'm making this video and being fairly critical. Throughout the duration of this video, we'll be referring to various articles about psychological things that fall into intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, because after lots of thinking, especially after going through this dumpster fire of a season of the worthless is what I personally like when people call it, I thought this would be a great time to do the video. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you guys click the like button, and if you want to see more content like this, raid guides, exotic reviews, quests, efficiencies, all that kinds of wonderful Destiny 2 stuff, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you feel like it, might as well hit the bell while your thumb's over there by subscribe anyways. Alright, so first up, we're going to just talk about what intrinsic is and what extrinsic values are. I'm going to have some screenshots going by as I talk that correlate to what makes the most sense with intrinsic and then extrinsic values, or I guess in this case, since it's a looter shooter, rewards, and I also have links for both articles in the description box down below, so you're welcome to read them more thoroughly. I just took shots of the things I thought made the most sense to highlight for you all during the course of this video. Alright, so let's talk about intrinsic motivation first. I'm going to put up the definition, and then we're just going to kind of talk about what intrinsic motivation is as it relates to Destiny 2. So intrinsic motivation is the act of doing something without any obvious external rewards. You do it because it's enjoyable and interesting, rather than because of an outside incentive or pressure to do it, such as a reward or deadline. And then the example they give within that screenshot is you read a book, maybe because you enjoy reading it and you have interest in the story or the subject, but not because you have to write a report on it to pass the class. If you have to write a report on it, that reading of the book then becomes extrinsic. So hopefully that makes sense about what intrinsic motivation is. As it relates to Destiny 2, we're going to talk about myself. So, I like playing Crucible. Not necessarily because of all the rewards or anything, I just enjoy playing the activity. So when I log into Destiny 2, I might just be like, I think I'll just play some Crucible today because I enjoy it, and just load in, and that's why I'm loading in. And another thing I do, just completely intrinsic motivation, is for some reason, I like getting all the triumphs done for every event that we go through in the community. Examples of those events would be like the Revelry, Festival of the Lost, and most recently, Guardian Games. I had no reason for Guardian Games to do all the medals every single day for my Titan, or to do all the triumphs because I only needed 7 of them to get the Heir Apparent, and I did all of them. I just get personal pride out of doing all those different triumphs, and so it's just something that motivates me to keep playing because of my own self-pride, and I just enjoy getting all of those triumphs. So that would be what intrinsic motivation is. So now let's go ahead and talk about extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is reward-driven behavior. It's a type of operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is a form of behavior modification that uses rewards or punishments to increase or decrease the likelihood that specific behaviors will recur. So how would this apply to Destiny 2? Well, all those exotic quests where you go through because you want to get the gun, that would be an example of extrinsic motivation. The most recent quest with Fellwinter's Lie, that is a great example of extrinsic motivation. We all wanted Fellwinter's Lie, and after Bungie made some adjustments, we went and did those several million Seraph Tower Guardian completions. So those are some examples of extrinsic motivation within Destiny 2. Mostly it's just doing stuff, you get a reward. Do a raid encounter, get a raid piece of gear. That's basically what it is. If interestingly enough, this article ended up showing that extrinsic motivation is best used in circumstances when the reward is used sparingly enough so it doesn't lose its impact. The value of the reward can decrease if the reward is given too much. This is sometimes referred to as the over-justification effect. So now let's talk about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, why I think these are playing hardcore into some of the struggles with Destiny 2, especially within Season of the Worthy, and we're going to also talk about how I think this ties in a little bit to sunsetting, and that's going to be the video. Now that we have talked about what extrinsic and intrinsic motivators are, let's talk about why I think Destiny 2 is struggling because of those two things. Now, I do disagree a little bit with the over-justification, right? Because the over-justification thing is like if you get too many rewards that are extrinsic, eventually there's some kind of care, and so you can use them too much. However, we are in a looter shooter, and the whole point is you shoot to get loot, so you kind of have to have a lot of loot. However, we don't get that much meaningful loot. So my wife brought this up. I think this is a really good way of splitting up our loot. So we have like the high outcome loot and low outcome loot. High outcome loot would be things like finishing a raid or doing the mountaintop quest or getting your not forgotten Luna's Howl, that kind of thing. Low outcome loot would be all that stuff we really don't care about too much, such as titles, the random ghosts and sparrows that drop at the end of Nightfalls, and we have way more of that low outcome loot than we do with a high outcome loot. But that kind of makes sense, right? Because like you can't have everything be high outcome. However, with sunsetting, all of our stuff that was high outcome is not really that valuable anymore. Sure, a very small percentage of the population will actually hop into a raid or do something that's endgame where power advantage matters. So for most people, may not be that big of a deal. But it is really frustrating when you put in all that time and effort to get to one of those high outcome loot pieces of gear just to have it go away. And Destiny's been really struggling to find that nice balance of high outcome loot and low outcome loot. Some great examples would be things like the nerfs that happen, right? Like how many of us know in the back of our heads, if you've been playing Destiny for years, like, all right, cool, I got this Izanagi's Burden, what are the odds it's going to be nerfed? I got Not Forgotten, what are the odds it's going to get nerfed? That kind of thing, right? Like we all get this loot, and we kind of know like it's just going to probably get nerfed at some point because that's just what seems to happen. Which then takes away some value from that high outcome loot and is also just really frustrating as a player base. I think Destiny 1 did a really good job of combining intrinsic and extrinsic value as well as the low and high outcome loot. So we had all these things like Nightfall loot. We had like Fatebringer, I believe, came from one of the raids. And then we had a Mago loot, which is like a version of Fatebringer that came from a Strike. And then we had all these different like Nightfall specific pieces. Like there was one Nightfall, I believe it was from Taken King with those two Cabal guys. And if you did things in a certain order, you had a chance to get a Strike specific piece of armor to drop. And it was really cool. It was like, I forget what it was, but it looked really awesome. I loved it. And we just don't have that much of it in Destiny 2. The closest thing we have, in my opinion, would be the Mindbender's Ambition that you get from the Hallowed Lair. I spent tons of time trying to farm that God roll, and I got so close to a God roll. The Masterwork is the only thing that made it not a God roll. Then like 2 days later, sunsetting was announced. I was like, well, might as well just stop farming out that piece of content and just worry about trying to do Fellwinters, because at least that will carry over. And thankfully I had a really good Astral Horizon already, so that will carry over as well, because I like having options. And we just need to try and find a better way of bringing content in Destiny 2 where we enjoy playing it and we have a reason, loot-wise, extrinsically, to play that loot. Destiny 1, like Hallowed Lair, I guess, since you were more time about Destiny 2. Great example. Lots of folks like playing PvE, lots of folks don't mind doing Nightfalls, and you have that little carrot at the end of the stick of having a chance of Mindbender's Ambition dropping, and that made that piece of content super playable. Whenever it was Hallowed Lair week, I knew I could just looking for a group, I would see like 50 posts being like, Hallowed Lair farm, or Mindbender's farm. If you go on any of the LFG options like Discord, apps, that kinds of stuff, you would oftentimes see lots of people saying, hey, I want to farm for Mindbenders, who wants to join me? And we don't really have a whole lot of that outside of that very specific activity. Now with sunsetting, we are going to have some more reasons to do things like raids, like specifically Last Wish and Garden of Salvation, because those armor pieces carry over. So Bungie's also now putting themselves in the weird position where lots of folks that are on the more hardcore ends of things worked really hard to get good armor rolls. Like, I have lots of armor that I think is like yeah. Like, I've got an Antaeus Wards of a stat roll 92 once it was masterworked and everything. And I've got some Dreambane armor that's like 86. But the Dreambane stuff's not carrying over. And it takes so much materials and time just to even be able to masterwork those pieces of gear that we were almost punished for intrinsically liking the game enough to work and get those resources, because we had that extrinsic goal as well of wanting to get a masterwork piece of gear so we could have the best stat rolls. And then Bungie's like, hey, surprise, most of those things you don't get to bring over unless they're an exotic. And so you're like, crap, that sucks. So in general, I am a fan of sunsetting. I do want to have more creative weapons, that sort of thing. But sunsetting will only work if we have that nice mix of intrinsic and extrinsic, because if we're just getting reissued the same thing, Destiny 1 did this. Destiny 1, we had Fellwinter's Y, and then Taken King happened. Fellwinter's Y was no good, but the Matador, I think it was the Matador 64, was basically the Fellwinter's Lie, and so you just had to re-chase like the same piece of loot, just with a different name and appearance. And I really hope that we don't have a ton of that in Destiny 2 come the fall. I'm sure there's going to have to be some of this whole reusing loot, because let's face it, there's only so many different types of creativity minds you can have, that the perks will be different. So I think the perks need to be really insane enough for us to be like, yeah, I like playing this piece of activity, so that way, look, I might get a shot at getting this really cool piece of gear, so I'm going to play this activity a lot because I like it, and because I want to have a shot at this piece of gear dropping. Comp is a decent example. Not everyone loves comp, but a lot of folks are really wanting things like Recluse, Luna's Howl, Not Forgotten, that sort of. Well, they might not want it now, but at least back like a year ago, people really wanted those items, and so folks would play comp. Some folks play comp because they really liked it and it was worth the chase. Other people just play comp because that's what you had to do to get those pieces of gear. And I just really hope we have in Destiny 2, with this whole fall expansion, we just get that really good balance. And I'm really hopeful that when they're talking about we're going to have all these strike-specific pieces of gear, all these activity pieces of gear, and then they're going to do a ritual type pinnacle weapon thing, but you can earn it in whatever activity you like to play. And I think that is going to actually work out really well. So I know something that folks didn't like about the ritual weapons was that, say you wanted to get the shotgun, the Python, you had to play lots of Gambit. And if you don't like Gambit, then that's just really a pain in the butt, especially if you go through all that, and then the piece of gear is like, meh, I happen to like Python, but I know a lot of folks do not like that shotgun, so that's why I use Python as an example. So I think it's really smart that Bungie is like, hey, let's reward people with a weapon, but they can play how they want to play in order to get this weapon earned. Like that, I think, is a really creative solution because it combines the intrinsic value because you're able to play stuff you want to play for this extrinsic value of this reward that you are trying to get, as opposed to having this extrinsic reward, but maybe intrinsically you don't like what you have to do to get that reward, but you do it anyways, and so you're like, I hate this is terrible, until you get to that reward. Alright guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope that you have some ideas. Like, what do you think? Are things like extrinsic, intrinsic rewards, is that the main issue with Destiny 2, or am I just blowing steam out my butt? Thank you all so much for watching. I am Church of Caboose. Have a great week, and happy grinding, y'all.